Hello, and welcome back to the Ninox Learning channel. My name is Andy. I'm a Ninox programmer and trainer, and I work for a company called Nioxus. In this class, we're going to look at the Family To-Do Management System, and this applet uses 3 tools in the Ninox system that are really very critical. Now, we've talked about these tools before, but I want you to see them in action, and they are specifically triggers, in this case a field trigger, calendar color coding, which is something we haven't really talked about before, and dynamic user-definable dashboards. For those of you that were tuning in expecting the home medicine cabinet or the home healthcare management system, that application is still getting a little bit of testing and quality assurance done here at Nioxus, so we're going to be doing that class next week. Today, we're doing the class we had planned for next week, so we're just flipping things around. But come back and join us next week, and we'll have our medicine cabinet ready to go, where we will be talking about interactive and automated emails. But in this class, we're going to be looking at this week's template of the week, which is the Family To-Do or Family Task Management System. Let's jump right in. Before we actually get into the application, if you like, go to www.nioxus.com, click on Login, and if you don't have your free password yet, you can go ahead and get one. Log in to the member portal, put in your email address and the password, and once you get into the portal, go ahead and click on Templates. We have a brand new template at the very top of the list called the Family To-Do list. Talks a little bit about the template. You'll see this screen snap, and then at the very bottom you can download for free this template. This is the template that we're going to be using in this class. Feel free to download the template, follow along, or maybe you can review it later, or if you're just looking for a nice basic to-do manager, this template will work very nicely for you. There's no password protection, it's open code, so go ahead and download it and use it as you see fit. With that out of the way, let's actually get into the application. Here we are at the desktop of our To-Do and Task Home Management System. Now, before we get into some of the key features we want to talk about, the triggers, the calendar color coding, and the dynamic, what we call user-definable or interactive dashboard, let's take a quick look at how this database works and what it does. It is essentially a task manager, a assignment manager, if you will, for all the different things that all the different members of a family have to do. Now, whether you live alone or you live with a large family, this is an excellent way for you to keep track of the things that you need to do. And this also would serve as a very good foundation for you to build a far more extensive and more sophisticated task or even project management system. It starts with the individuals that are responsible for doing the work. Since this is a home management tool, the individuals are the members of our family. So we have set up a number of members, 6 members of the family. We have Charles and Eleanor, Enzo and Ettore, Ferruccio and Henry. Now, for each member of the family, and we'll go ahead and look at Enzo Ferrari, for each member of the family, we have a picture. We have their name. Again, this is a family tool, so a last name is not necessary. But if you want to expand this into project management, you could add things like last names and emails and phone numbers. But you'll notice right next to the name, we have this calendar color flag. And this is just a color picker, a color field that we've put into the table. And when we click on it, it pops up the color picker or the palettes or the RGB sliders that allow us to assign a different color to each member of the family. And here in the family listing, we see the name, we see the images, and we see the unique color that has been assigned to each member of the family. This is going to be very important when we start color coding all of the different things that are being managed on our calendar. So it's important to understand where we go to flag or color code in this application. And in this case, we are coding based on the individual that has been assigned the task. we could just as easily have gone into the chores or the to-do list where we list all of the different things that have to get done, and we could have color-coded the tasks themselves, maybe using green to cut the grass, orange to take the kids to soccer, and blue to take the family dog for their annual checkup. But again, this idea of color coding is important because there's only one calendar in Ninox, and we're going to have everybody's scheduled assignments all on that one calendar. So in this class, you're going to learn how to color code everyone's schedule, so when it appears all on one calendar, you can use those colors. You could also use icons in the same manner to identify who is doing what on each day of the week and in the month of the calendar view. So let's take a look very quickly at how the system works. We've set up a number of chores. We then go into the family, and let's select a family member, and you'll see that each person has been assigned a series of things that they have to do. In this case, Enzo is responsible for taking the dog for the annual checkup, and he's responsible for doing this each year, and he's also responsible for cleaning his room every day. And then here we see the annual checkups, again, for the family dog that are scheduled many years in advance. And we see these once a year in the middle of May for the years 2020, 21, 2, 3, and 4. This list of chores is being listed in ascending order, from the oldest to the newest, or in this case, the furthest into the future. When we want to assign a chore or a task to an individual, it is as simple as creating the task. Let's create a new task called wash the car. This is something that should take, if done correctly, at least 90 minutes. And we want to start washing the car at the beginning of summer. So we'll say June 1st or July 1st. We want this to be done once a week or weekly. And we're going to assign this to Ferruccio. In this case, that would be Ferruccio Lamborghini. Finally, we want to schedule this on a repeating basis. We've already indicated the frequency of repetition. Now we're going to indicate how many times we want this done. We want this done every week for the 12 weeks of the summer part of the year. July, August, and September. So we're going to go ahead and schedule this to repeat 12 times. Now watch what happens. When I put in the number 12 and exit the field, we immediately see 12 instances of washing the car, starting on July 1st, which was the start date that we assigned, scheduled 7 days apart. Okay? How did that happen? Well, this is the first tool that I wanted to talk about when we talk about a field-based trigger. Remember, a trigger is something that, when pulled, when activated, causes something to happen. It's no different than the trigger on a gun. Pulling the trigger activates the process or commences the process of firing the projectile out of the weapon. In this case, the trigger is attached to the schedule repetition field, and it is a after update trigger. What that means is whenever this field is changed or updated, this trigger is going to be pulled, if you will. This series of events is going to take place, or more specifically, these 29 lines of code are going to be executed. And what they do, what these lines of code do, in the first 5 lines, they identify the ID of this particular task or to-do, the identifier or the identification of who it's being assigned to. We get the name of that individual here in line 3. In line 4, we're creating a variable called sDate or start date, and that's where we assign the first scheduled instance of this to-do. And then finally, we're initializing a variable called rCount or repetition count. We're initializing that to 0. We're basically establishing the existence of the variable and just giving it a value of 0 to begin with. We then use a switch construct based on the frequency. Remember, our frequency options were daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, and annual. The default is 0. Here we see the switch construct within this trigger. And what it says is, for example, if you select 1, the first option, which is daily, then the repetition count will be every 1 day. If you select option 2, which is weekly, the R count or repetition count will be 7. If we were doing it monthly, that's every 30 days. Quarterly is every 90. Twice a year or semi-annually, which is option number 5. In case we select number 5, the repetition count is every 180 days. And finally, option 6, the annual option, says that we're going to do this every 365 days. Finally, and optionally, the last option in the switch construct is the default. If nothing is selected, then we're back to the repetition count being 0, which is to say it's not going to repeat at all. Once we have established what needs to be done, that is the task itself. Once we've established who it's being assigned to, we see that in line 2, then we go into this loop. And the loop says, for every instance of repetition, from 0, the variable I will count up from 0 to the number of times this is to be repeated. And for every one of those repetitions, we're going to create a new record in the chore schedule. The chore schedule is where the work to be done and the people who do it come together. We are assigning a chore to a member of the family, so that individual now is responsible for the execution of this particular task or to-do on the specific date. We note the date. We indicate who is responsible for this. This is the My ID. This is the individual, the current record of the family member that we're on. And let's take a quick moment and look at line 25. This is the single line of code that allows us to increment the date. Remember, the date begins on the start date. We then add a number of days, and that number of days is represented by R count or repetition count. And since we selected case 2, the R count is 7 days. Now remember, the variable I is going to count from 0 to 7. So what we are saying in line 25 is that the date of the next scheduled repetition or the next chore schedule is going to be equal to the start date plus the number of days in the repetition cycle or the R count times I. The first time through, I equals 0. R count equals 7. 7 times 0 is 0. So the first date is the S date, and that is the start date that we defined. And we see that where S date is initialized in line 4. The next time through this loop, the loop that begins on line 23, I equals 1. R count still equals 7. 7 times 1 is 7. We are going to add 7 days to the start date, and that is the second repetition. The third time through the loop, I equals 2. 0 the first time, 1 the second time, 2 the third time. 2 times 7 is 14. We're going to add 14 days to the start date. That's 2 weeks later. When I equals 3, we're going to add 21 days. When I equals 4, 28 days. All the way up to 12. Because we indicated we want this to repeat 12 times. Count from 0 to the number of repetitions, which is 12. On the 12th time, R count still equals 7. 7 times 12 is 84. That is 12 weeks. So the last occurrence of this assigned to-do to this individual will happen 84 days or 12 weeks after the first date or the start date when it began. So in these 29 lines of code, we are establishing what needs to be done and who needs to do it. We're using a case structure to determine numerically by number of days how many days are going to be between each occurrence. We then run a for loop here on lines 23 through 28 that says for every one of those repetitions, and we define 12, 3 months every week, which is 4 weeks per month, 3 times 4 is 12. So go from 0 to 12 and multiply the count you are on as measured by the variable I times 7, which is the number of days in the repetition cycle. That's a weekly cycle. Add it to the start date and go ahead and create another record in the chore schedule, which is the table. This is a hidden table where we keep track of what needs to be done and who has been assigned to do it and when. So it's a long explanation on a relatively short code block, but this is a very powerful code block because you can use this mechanism. And we looked at this in a prior class on the Ninox Learning channel when we looked at calendar tools and we looked at how we could schedule repeating events and multi-day events. This is a version, a kind of a slimmed down version of that construct, of that utility. But this allows you to schedule multiple events over multiple periods of time according to any frequency that you select. And the for loop, the loop that we see on line 23, or beginning on line 23, creates all those recurrences. What happens if start on is left blank? If there is no start date, then the if then on line 22 will fail and nothing will be scheduled. If there's no start date, the process will never start, so there's nothing to be scheduled. So line 22 has a little check in there to make sure that we actually want to schedule these things. This block of code is in a trigger that is going to be pulled, that's going to be executed every time this field is changed. So this trigger in this field executes automatically, and when the trigger is this code block, and remember, if you download the free template, you'll be able to copy this code block right into your own Ninox database. This is how we can do scheduling of recurring events over any frequency of time. We could do this every other year. We could do it twice a week if you wanted. You can get very fancy with this. But this is a nice little snippet of code. And when used as a trigger, it automatically does all of the scheduling for us. Before we move on to the next feature in our to-do application, I want to point out a couple of other things that we put in here. First of all, there is the location field that allows us to identify where this particular task or to-do takes place. There is a destination contact and a destination phone number. The reason for this is if something has to be reassigned. Now, some things we don't need to track the location. For example, washing the car is very likely going to happen in the driveway or the parking lot in front of our home or apartment. But where we have other things like take the dog for his annual checkup, take the kids to soccer, this is a situation where we may need to go to a specific place. A situation where we are taking the dog for the annual checkup, we may need to go to a particular location, the veterinary hospital. We may need to meet with a specific doctor or veterinarian, and there's a phone number associated with that dog care facility. If this had to be reassigned to someone else, right now it's assigned to Enzo, but if it had to be reassigned to someone else who may not be familiar with this task, who maybe hasn't done it before, they would at least know where to go, who to ask for when they arrive, and a phone number they can call if they have any questions. The where to go, the location field, is particularly nice because this allows us to actually map the location. I clicked on the location field and I'm going to type in the Westerville Veterinary Clinic, which gives us that address, 69 Huber Village Boulevard. I'm going to save that. So now all of the information, the address, city, state, zip, and country, is tracked with this particular chore, taking the dog for the annual checkup. We can note the contact would be Dr. Jones, the phone number for the clinic is there. So if for whatever reason, the next time the dog has to go in for the checkup, if the person that normally does it is not available to do it, someone else can pick up this task off the to-do list and see where to go, who to talk to when they get there, and a phone number they can call if they have any questions. We just got done talking about the trigger. The next thing I want to talk about is the interactive dashboard. First of all, what is an interactive dashboard? And then secondly, and more importantly, how can we build one? Let's take a look. We can go into our dashboard, and by interactive, I mean we can pick what we see. Now, we know what a dashboard is. Dashboards are most commonly associated with vehicles, automobiles, trucks. In our automobile, the dashboard is the one place we can look to get a current, up-to-the-date, second-by-second report on how the system, or in this case, the vehicle, is performing. This is a Ninox dashboard that we built. Now, the first thing I want to point out is you will note that when I came to this table, I was here looking at our family. I could have just as easily been looking at the desktop of this to-do list application. When I clicked on dashboard, it took me right to the dashboard. Compare that to what happens when I click on our family. It takes me to a list of all of the records in the family. We've effectively created a button on our desktop that instead of taking us to a table, takes us right to a screen view or a form view of that table. Let me show you quickly how we did that. We go to dashboard and we see there's only one view. And that view is the family to-do list, and this happens to be a form view. Let me show you what we could do, and then let me show you how to do this very quickly. Let's go to our family. I'm going to create a new view. It's going to be a form view, and it's going to be the family member view, which looks like this, selecting the first member alphabetically by name in the family, and in this case, that is Charles. I am then going to, by clicking on the name of the other view, remove the other view. This is now the only view associated with this table. So if I'm now on the desktop and I click on our family, we go right to this full screen view. Now, that doesn't make a great deal of sense in this context, so I'm going to go back and add the table listing and call this the family roster. I'll go and add that back in, and I'm going to go ahead and actually remove that form view. So now, again, from the desktop, we click on our family, takes us to this listing. But anytime we click on the dashboard, we go right to this form. So that's a little bonus feature in terms of how to create a dashboard that automatically pops up full screen on your screen. Now that we're in the dashboard, let's talk about this concept of user definability or interactivity. What we've done is we've created a choice field that has the name of each member of the family. If we select any single member of the family, the dashboard will pop up a list of all of the tasks that are assigned to that individual. And by this, I mean we have created an interactive or a configurable dashboard. I can see what I'm interested in seeing. Let's take it one step further. If I'm looking at all, not one individual member of the family and their assignments, but all members of the family and all assignments, we now have an additional option. The option to decide how we want to see the data that is to be presented. Notice here when we selected an individual, this allowed us to pick what we saw. We're seeing the same thing for each person. I can change the person. This will change what I see, but I'm going to see the same 6 things. The name of the individual, the day of the week, the name of the month, the date, and the task itself that is to be done, and the flag on the far right side of whether or not it's been completed. What I see is changing, how I see it is not. But when we go to all, we now have the option to not only define what we're going to see, but how to see it. I want to see it sorted by assignee. Here are all the members of the family, and I can click on any one member of the family and see just their assignments. I'm going to go into administrative mode, and I'm going to drag this down a little bit. So this will make a little bit more sense. There's all of Charles' assignments. There's Enzo's assignments. I can close up Enzo. I can go take a look at Eleanor, close up Eleanor and Charles, and take a look at Ferruccio or Henry. This is all members of the family, all assigned tasks. That's what I want to see. But this choice field here allows me to define how I see it. Grouped by assignee, grouped by day of the week, by month, by the task itself, in ascending or descending order based on the date that it is supposed to get done. I can look at something according to who it's assigned to. So for example, if Enzo is out of town for a few days, I can open it up and see all the things that are assigned to Enzo. He has to clean his room every day and once a year take the dog for a checkup. I may want to see day of week. Let's say that the entire family was out on an outing on a particular Saturday. Nobody did any of the things they were supposed to do. When we get back, we may want to pop open the Saturday listing, and this shows us everything that was supposed to get done and who was supposed to do it. Maybe we need to reassign the dog's doctor's appointment. So we can go to sort by task. Here's take the dog for their annual checkup. They are all assigned. And again, I'll just quickly go into administrative mode. Let me see if there's a few more of these. Yeah, we can drag that down just like that. And we can see that Enzo is assigned to take the dog for his annual checkup for the next, well, in this case, 5 years through 2024. I could easily go in and reassign that if I needed to. And finally, if I just want to see everything that everyone needs to do in either ascending or descending order, I can do that. This choice field allows me to pick what I see. This choice field allows me to define or tell Ninox how I want to see it. This is what I mean by a dynamic or interactive dashboard. Now you see what it does. Let's see how we made it work. Let's go behind the scenes by grabbing our wrench, going into administrative mode, and taking a look at what we have here. Let's start with the individuals. Each time I select an individual, I see the exact same thing. I see the exact same 6 fields, but I see them for the individual that I have selected. How is that able to work? Well, keep in mind we've defined a choice field with the name of each member of the family, and we have all 6 members of the family, Enzo, Ettore, Charles, Henry, Ferruccio, and Eleanor, and then another option for all. Let's focus right now on just the individuals within this list. As I select each individual, this field, the select individual field, takes on 2 values: the name of the family member and the number of that choice in the list. We continue. Let us look at this construct here. What is this multi-record listing? Well, many of you have probably already guessed. It is a view. It is a view of the chore schedule table. Remember, the chore schedule table is where the things that needed to be done and the people that do them come together. We call that an assignment. Now remember, we have selected a specific individual. That individual was selected in the Select Individual choice field. And as I said, that choice field took on two values: the name of the individual and the numeric code of the individual. In this case, we have chosen to extract the name of the individual, the text value of the selection of that choice field, and assign it to a variable called fname or first name. And then we say, select all the records in the chore schedule table where the name of the person assigned that chore is the name we selected. That only works, however, if we have selected an individual, or specifically, the individual we have selected is not individual number 6. Individual number 6, remember, is this choice, all. So we use the names to define what appears in this view, but we're using the number to indicate whether we have selected a specific individual or all individuals. In every situation where the selection is not selection number 6, we have selected an individual. So we are going to select only those records in the chore schedule table where the assigned name, where the person who's been assigned that work is the person we've identified. Or else, if the select individual choice field does equal 6, that means we want to see all assignments to all people. So if it's not 6, which means we've selected option 6, which means we want to see all, then we are simply selecting every record in the chore schedule without restriction, without filtering on the value of any field. So there are a number of different things happening here. The first thing that's happening is I am selecting a particular individual. But the other thing that is happening is I am either selecting everyone or I'm not selecting everyone. If I'm not selecting everyone, then it will show me the chores assigned to the person I did choose. If I am selecting everyone by choosing all, which is option number 6, now, by default, nothing is going to be displayed. What is going to happen is the sort order choice field is going to pop up because we have indicated that we want to display this choice field when the individual selected in the previous field is select option number 6, which was all. When we want to see all, when this field equals 6, this field pops up. This field also has 6 options, and they are assignee day of week, name of month, the task itself, and 2 options for date in ascending or descending order. This choice field, like the previous one, now equals 2 things: the name or the text of the selection and the numeric value assigned to that selection. A moment ago, we saw things happening, we saw things being displayed based on the name we selected. Here we see if we selected Enzo, if the text value of this choice field equals ENZO, then show us or select all of the assignments to the individual with that first name. So we were using the text field to create the interactive or dynamic function within our dashboard. Now we're going to look at the other option. We select all, which is option number 6. Option number 6 forces our second choice field to appear. Our second choice field also has 6 options, but we are now going to act on the number of the option selected, not the text. We're going to operate on these values 1 through 6 here. As we select the different sort options, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, different views are appearing. For example, by assignee. Well, what is that? That is a view where we are selecting all records in the chore schedule, and we are specifically indicating we want that view grouped by the name of the person that has been assigned the chore. What happens if we change the value of this choice field? Right now it's 1. If it becomes 2, we see a completely different view. It's the same formula. We're selecting the records in the same table. All records in the chore assignment or chore schedule table, but this time we are grouping them by the day of the week. So what we have done, and I'm going to go into edit fields, we have created one view for the chores assigned to an individual. And this view appears when the choice of individual is not 6, is not all. We don't care who it is, we just know it's one person, not all persons. When the option is not 6, we will see this view. This view has code that specifically indicates whose assignments are to appear based on the name of the person selected. These 6 views are all identical. They all have exactly the same fields and exactly the same formula. Select the chore schedule. Select chore schedule. Every one of them is selecting all of the records in the chore schedule. But the one we see, the one that is displayed, is the one that corresponds to the numeric value of the sort order. In this case, we want to see this particular view when select individual equals 6, which means all, and the sort order equals 6. Well, what does that mean? In this case, that would mean that we want to see the dates in descending order. Let's go back and look at what has to happen for that to work. We have to go into this field and select option 6, which is the view with the dates in descending order. If I choose a different view, I get a different asset that pops up. We have just created 6 identical assets, but 5 of them are invisible at all times. And if no selection is made, then all 6 of them are invisible. If you want to make sure that there is always something being displayed, just go into the sort order field, make it required, and let's say that the assignee will be the default value. Now, what we are doing is we are saying there is no way that this field cannot have something selected, which means you will always see all the records, all of the assignments to all of the members of the family sorted the way you select. So when we talk about interactive dashboards, we're talking about giving the user the opportunity to define what they see and how they see it without them having to actually go behind the scenes in Ninox. This is what we call a dynamic or a user-definable dashboard. User-definable dashboards make use of our choice fields, and here we see 2 of them, selecting what we see in this one and how we see it in that one, taking advantage of the visibility invisibility feature built into Ninox, or the display field only if. Based on how they want to see it, Ninox will present what they want to see the way they want to see it. I want to see all, but there's 6 different ways to see it. The one way I choose will be visible, the other 5 will remain invisible. And if I just want to see one individual, sort order is no longer an option. Now I'm going to see the view that is supposed to be displayed when I select anything that is not option 6, or in this case, the all function. So by using the visibility and visibility flag, by using choice fields, and by setting up multiple views of what seem to be the same thing, but different ways of looking at it, you can create these very powerful, interactive, user-definable dashboards that have drill down, drill through, drill up. You can build formulas with metrics and KPIs and statistics and business intelligence. You can really go crazy with this, and you can create interactive dynamic dashboards that your users can basically build the view they want to see without ever having to know anything about Ninox. And sometimes that's crucially important. So that's the interactive dashboard component of this particular class. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is the calendar color coding. Remember when we assigned a color to each individual? Well, we know, and I'm going to go back into administrative mode, we know where to go to find out what has been assigned to who. The work that needs to get done, the people that do the work, they come together in this chore schedule. In the chore schedule table, which is a hidden table, but I'm in administrative mode, so it's unhidden, we see the work that needs to be done, a selection from the chore list, and the one member of the family selected to do that work. And remember, when we looked at the members of the family, every member of the family has a unique color with which they are associated. So let's go back to the chore schedule and let's take a look at this date field. And if you want more information on how to use the calendar and how to make dates appear on the calendar, if you go back 3 or 4 weeks, there is a training class here on the Ninox Learning channel that talks all about the calendar, all about scheduling, repeat scheduling, sequence scheduling, scheduling to-dos with reminders and follow-ups. All of that is in a previous class. But let's right now just look at this date field. This date field gives us the option to indicate yes or no. Do we want the record of which this date field is a component or a field to appear in the calendar? And we have selected yes, we do. We have not indicated a color, but we have created a formula to define how it's going to appear on the calendar. Let's dive in and look at that formula. Quick, simple, easy 7 lines of code. The first thing is establishing the existence of a variable called C, and C will equal null or nothing. If the family name is null, then C is to be assigned, which means it has no color at all. It has no assignment at all. But if the family name is not null, that means that this has been assigned to somebody. So C is going to equal the name of that person plus an open paren, the amount of time the chore takes, the tag or the unit of measure, the abbreviation for minutes, MIN, and a close paren. That is the value of C when a task has been assigned to a person. Then we use the styled function in the Ninox language. And we specifically say to style this concatenated string, which consists of 3 things: the chore, a colon and a space, and the value of C. And the value of C is the name of the person that has to do the chore and the amount of time in minutes that chore is supposed to take. That is what is going to be styled. How is it going to be styled? The second parameter is the color assigned to that member of the family. Whoever this is, their color will be the color that is used to code this concatenated string of text as it appears in the calendar. So given this, our ability to determine if something has been assigned, and if it has been assigned, to determine the color of the person it's assigned to, these 7 lines of code give us a calendar that looks like this. We see the concatenated string, the name of the task, clean room, a colon and a space, the name of the individual that has been assigned to do this work, and in parentheses, the estimated amount of time that it should take to get the work done. And because this is in the block of 8 in this particular month of October 2019, we know when this is supposed to happen. October 8th is not a particularly busy day. Enzo has to clean his room. But look at a few days later on Thursday, October 10th. Rooms have to be cleaned by both Ettore and Enzo. Same task, same amount of time, 2 different people, 2 different colors, and once a week, on Thursday, every 7 days, Eleanor takes the kids to soccer. The family to-do list is a basic, simple applet or mini solution, mini application that we have built in Ninox. You can use it as it is by downloading it from our portal, or you can use it as the baseline or the foundation for a far more sophisticated to-do task punch list management system, or you can go completely crazy and build an entire project management system. But the point is, this simple little applet for keeping track of who needs to do what around the house, it works because of 3 very powerful features. The first one is the ability to use this trigger in the schedule repetition field to set up something once, and we see the one setup here on the top line. This is what needs to be done. This is how long it takes. Start on this date, do it annually. Enzo's the man to do it, and schedule the next 6 annual periods. This is the one setup, and we see all of the different assignments down here, and this was able to be done because of the trigger on this field. We then moved on to look at our dashboard, this dynamic interactive system of allowing the user to define what they see, and in certain cases, how they see it, with just a couple clicks of the mouse. Straightforward, intuitive, easy to use, easy to figure out. And finally, because we were talking about date-sensitive or calendarized events, we only have the one calendar view in Ninox. And there are 6 members of our family, all having to do different things on different dates. So by color coding each individual, we can see all of the different calendars represented by all of the different colors, which are all of the different individuals in our family, what they need to do, the date they need to do it, and an approximate estimation of how long it should take. A simple applet with 3 incredibly powerful tools built in to make it work. Go ahead and download it. It's free. You can download it from the member portal, and it's open code. So you can copy and paste these formulas, these triggers, these color coding tools, copy and paste them right into your Ninox applications, or download the template and practice what you've learned here in this class today. That's going to do it for this, our 600 level solution class on the Ninox Learning channel. please join us next week when we will finally be introducing the medicine cabinet. This is the personal health management tool that we have built to keep track of everything from prescriptions to dosages to refills to tracking your blood pressure to tracking your weight to keeping track of your dietary requirements. It'll even keep track of your blood work if that's something you need to do within your health regime. I hope you've enjoyed this class. I hope you learned a little bit about these crucial functions of triggers, the calendar view, and the dynamic interactive dashboards. And most importantly, I hope you'll come back and see me again here on the Ninox Learning channel. Thanks for joining me. Go out, build some great Ninox databases, and come back and see us next week. Bye-bye, everybody.